In the extreme northwest of the inland on the Yunshao continent, 11 figures rose into the air. At their head strode an old man, tall and broad-shouldered, his brows radiating natural authority. A golden robe draped his frame, grand and imposing. Behind him walked 10 others, men and women mixed. Among the 10, only one was a woman. The remaining 9 were men. Yet it was the woman who held the highest status, for she alone followed directly behind the golden-robed elder, with the rest trailing behind her. Suddenly the golden-robed elder seemed to sense something. He spun around and fixed his gaze on the black-clad youth at the rear. The youth was tall and strikingly handsome. Still, he walked last, deliberately keeping a low profile. "Zhou-yi, you've broken through to the Martial Emperor realm?" As the elder spoke, his eyes blazed like twin stars in the night sky. The instant his words rang out, the blue-clad woman directly behind him reacted first, astonishment flashing across her face. Immediately after, the remaining 8 came to their senses and turned, staring at the black-clad youth as if they'd seen a ghost. Martial Emperor realm? He had actually stepped into the Martial Emperor realm? "Yes, master." Zhou-yi inclined his head to the golden-robed elder, neither servile nor arrogant. If anyone from the Lost Stone Forest were present, they would instantly recognize this black-clad youth as their former Martial Emperor's direct disciple, the one once most valued by Stone Diver Martial Emperor, Zhou-yi. After secretly substituting and making off with the demon-sealing stone tablet from Stone Diver Martial Emperor, Zhou-yi had defected from Lost Stone Forest. Though Stone Diver Martial Emperor later tried to track him down, he had discovered the theft too late and found nothing. For a long time afterward, Zhou-yi hid wherever he could, terrified of being discovered by Stone Diver Martial Emperor. It wasn't until recently that he heard a Martial Emperor expert near where he lived was recruiting Martial Emperor disciples, and he decided to join this expert's sect. He had long heard that this Martial Emperor expert was even more powerful than Stone Diver Martial Emperor. With strength only half a step from the Martial Emperor realm, Zhou-yi easily passed the selection held at the expert's cultivation grounds and smoothly became a Martial Emperor disciple. After becoming a disciple, he shone even brighter, caught the Martial Emperor expert's eye, and was accepted as a Martial Emperor's direct disciple. Yet, though now a Martial Emperor's direct disciple, he no longer showed off as he had back in Lost Stone Forest. From the day he left, he had learned restraint. He understood well that, compared with a mad dog that bites at everything, a viper lying in wait can survive far longer. Thus, he became the most low-key of all the Martial Emperor's direct disciples under this particular Martial Emperor. And now, this very low-key Martial Emperor's direct disciple had broken through to the Martial Emperor realm, stunning everyone present. The golden-robed elder was one of the few publicly acknowledged Martial Emperor experts on the Yunshao continent, honored as Martial Emperor Lei Ming, whose strength rivaled that of the one in Yuhan Valley. "Ha! Excellent, excellent." Hearing Zhou-yi personally admit his breakthrough, Martial Emperor Lei Ming burst into hearty laughter before the others could even react. "This means my line now boasts a second Martial Emperor's direct disciple in the Martial Emperor realm." Martial Emperor Lei Ming beamed with delight. "Congratulations, Master. Congratulations, Martial Emperor." At this moment the 9, including the blue-clad woman directly behind Martial Emperor Lei Ming, offered their felicitations together. Many cast envious glances toward Zhou-yi. They all understood. From the instant Zhou-yi set foot in the Martial Emperor realm, he was fated to become the Martial Emperor's most valued Martial Emperor's direct disciple. Or rather, one of the 2 most valued. Because Martial Emperor Lei Ming had long possessed a Martial Emperor realm personal disciple, the blue-clad woman right behind him, Lan Bai. "Junior brother Zhou, congratulations on reaching the Martial Emperor realm." Lan Bai smiled as she offered her good wishes. "Thank you, senior sister Bai." Zhou-yi quickly expressed his gratitude. "Junior brother Zhou, why are you still trailing at the back? Are you afraid your senior sister and master might eat you?" Lan Bai glanced at his position and lightly frowned. "Of course not." Zhou-yi shook his head. "Zhou-yi, stand beside your senior sister." "What nonsense is this? Martial Emperor realm personal disciples of mine walking at the very rear." Martial Emperor Lei Ming now spoke up. "Yes, master." Zhou-yi answered respectfully. He dared not disobey Martial Emperor Lei Ming. He still needed the latter's protection. Though he had stepped into the Martial Emperor realm, his strength was still far below that of Martial Emperor Lei Ming, or even his former master, Stone Diver Martial Emperor of Lost Stone Forest, at the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering. I hope you'll bring honor to your master. As long as you secure a high rank, I'll reward you handsomely. Martial Emperor Lei Ming turned to Zhou Yi, who had just arrived beside Lan Bai, and spoke slowly. Master, rest assured, Zhou Yi will give it his all to bring glory to you and to Thundercloud Peak. Zhou Yi declared solemnly. Thundercloud Peak was precisely Martial Emperor Lei Ming's cultivation ground. Good, good. Hearing Zhou Yi's words, Martial Emperor Lei Ming beamed. He raised his hand, and a slender saber shimmering with flowing light appeared. This spiritual saber is my gift to you, congratulating you on your breakthrough to the Martial Emperor realm. As he spoke, Martial Emperor Lei Ming offered the spiritual saber to Zhou Yi. This Martial Emperor Lei Ming's action startled all 9 people present, including Lan Bai. That's the Martial Emperor's personal spiritual saber. The Martial Emperor's personal spiritual saber is one of only 2 Quasi-Emperor grade spirit artifacts on Thundercloud Peak. The other Quasi-Emperor grade spirit artifact was given to Senior Sister Bai when she broke through to the Martial Emperor realm years ago. In other words, this is the only Quasi-Emperor grade spirit artifact left in the Martial Emperor's hands. Once he gives it away, he'll have to settle for a first-grade spirit tool. Soon, many realized what was happening and began whispering. Most looked at Zhou Yi with envy. A few, however, stared at him with jealousy. The latter were Martial Emperor's direct disciples. They had long coveted the Quasi-Emperor grade spiritual saber in Martial Emperor Lei Ming's possession, each hoping to reach the Martial Emperor realm soon and claim it. Who could have predicted that a direct disciple who had joined Thundercloud Peak not long ago would break through to the Martial Emperor realm ahead of them? Master, this is inappropriate. Junior brother Zhou has only recently joined Thundercloud Peak. Giving him a Quasi-Emperor grade spirit artifact so rashly is too risky. Indeed, Master. The other 2 Martial Emperor disciples hastily urged Martial Emperor Lei Ming. Their meaning was clear. They feared that once Zhou Yi obtained the Quasi-Emperor grade spirit artifact, he might leave Thundercloud Peak. If that happened, the Quasi-Emperor grade spirit artifact would effectively become a wedding dress zone for Zhou Yi. Don't think I don't know what you're scheming. Hearing the 2 Martial Emperor's direct disciples, Martial Emperor Lei Ming gave a cold snort. If you must blame someone, blame yourselves for lacking the ability. From this day forward, this Quasi-Emperor grade spiritual saber belongs to Zhou Yi. As he finished, under the resentful gazes of the 2 Martial Emperor's direct disciples, Martial Emperor Lei Ming looked again at Zhou Yi. Master, what senior brothers said makes some sense. You should keep this spiritual saber for yourself. Zhou Yi did not accept the saber Martial Emperor Lei Ming offered. I said it's yours, so take it. Although a Quasi-Emperor grade spirit artifact isn't vastly stronger than a first-grade spirit tool, it's still stronger. With it, you can better display your strength at the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering and strive for a high rank. Martial Emperor Lei Ming insisted on giving the Quasi-Emperor grade spiritual saber to Zhou Yi. Master, I understand your intention. However, I already possess a Quasi-Emperor grade spirit artifact myself. Even if you give me your saber, I won't be able to use it, Zhou Yi said with a smile. Zhou Yi's words shocked not only Martial Emperor Lei Ming, but everyone else as well. Zhou Yi already had a Quasi-Emperor grade spirit artifact? Junior brother Zhou, this is no time for jokes. The Mist Concealment Martial Gathering is at stake. Don't mind their idle gossip. They're simply jealous of you, Lan Bai said to Zhou Yi, causing the other 2 Martial Emperor's direct disciples to flush and pale, too embarrassed to speak. Lan Bai, a Martial Emperor's direct disciple in the Martial Emperor realm, was the strongest on Thundercloud Peak after Martial Emperor Lei Ming. Even combined, those 2 were far from a match for Lan Bai. Lan Bai is right. This is no joking matter. Martial Emperor Lei Ming added seriously. Master, Senior Sister, please see for yourselves. Zhou Yi shook his head. As he raised his hand, a peculiar stone tablet appeared. It looked odd because one corner was missing. Apart from the missing corner, the tablet was densely carved with unfamiliar characters. These characters exuded an ancient, primordial aura. Whoosh! As Zhou Yi channeled his chi into the strange stone tablet, it trembled violently. Above the void realm, the power of heaven and earth stirred. First 2 ancient azure dragon silhouettes appeared, then another 2, for in total, shining together. 2 ancient azure dragons' strength is the hallmark of a first-level Martial Emperor realm martial artist. doubling that strength is the hallmark of a quasi-emperor grade spirit artifact. It really is a quasi-emperor grade spirit artifact. Many couldn't help exclaiming. Martial Emperor Lei Ming and Lan Bai confirmed that Zhou Yi indeed possessed a quasi-emperor grade spirit artifact. The corner missing stone tablet Zhou Yi had just taken out was precisely the demon sealing steel. Back then, because of the secret hidden within the demon sealing steel, he betrayed his master, Martial Emperor Shichi, and betrayed the lost stone forest. However, to this day, apart from knowing that the demon sealing steel could be used as a quasi-emperor grade spirit artifact, he had not uncovered any other uses. Junior brother Zhou, senior sister admires you. At this moment, Lan Bai gave Zhou Yi a thumbs up and praised. If I were in your place, even if I already had a quasi-emperor grade spirit artifact, I wouldn't refuse the quasi-emperor grade spirit artifact given by master. Everyone present deeply agreed with Lan Bai's words. Even Martial Emperor Lei Ming himself looked at Zhou Yi with increasing satisfaction. Now, do you still think Zhou Yi will leave my Thundercloud Peak after receiving the quasi-emperor grade spirit artifact I gave him? Martial Emperor Lei Ming glanced indifferently at his other two personal disciples and asked. The two of them smiled bitterly, lowered their heads, and dared not retort, nor did they have any way to retort. They never expected Zhou Yi to be so ruthless as to refuse even a quasi-emperor grade spirit artifact that was handed to him. One must know that on the Yunshao continent, quasi-emperor grade spirit artifacts were priceless and rare. No one would ever have too many. However, including Martial Emperor Lei Ming, the group of people present had no idea of Zhou Yi's true thoughts. Zhou Yi doing this was not because his character was so good. He did this mainly to establish the best image in front of Martial Emperor Lei Ming. Thus, even if he encountered Martial Emperor Shichi on Mist Concealment Island, he wouldn't be afraid, because Martial Emperor Lei Ming would protect him. With Martial Emperor Lei Ming's protection, he had no fear of Martial Emperor Shichi. To give is to gain. At this moment, Zhou Yi kept comforting himself. A quasi-emperor grade spirit artifact had just slipped through his fingers. If he said he didn't feel heartache, it would definitely be a lie. Depart. With a loud shout from Martial Emperor Lei Ming, a surging and vast invisible force erupted from him, pulling 10 people, including Zhou Yi and Lan Bai, directly northward. Their destination was Mist Concealment Island, an overseas holy island deep in the sea north of the Yunshao continent. Extremely far away, southeast of Thundercloud Peak. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Figures faster than lightning streaked across the sky. Wherever they passed, the clouds and mist were all dispersed, only to regather after a long while. The destination of these figures was the north of the inland, which was also the north of the Yunshao continent. There were 11 owners of these figures in total. The leader was a young man. As he flew, he seemed to transform into a sword, and together with the 10 people he was pulling, they seemed to become a giant sword. The giant sword pierced through the air, its speed astonishingly fast. Crack! A crisp sound rang out. Duan Lingtian found that the exquisite jade box in his hand had suddenly opened, revealing a gap. At this instant, Duan Lingtian's eyes became somewhat dazed. He still remembered. In the past, he had tried many times to open the exquisite jade box, but always without success. At that time, he even used spiritual artifacts, but it was still useless. However, now, without using spiritual artifacts, or even Yuanli, he had easily opened the exquisite jade box with just the power of 2 profound truths. As soon as the exquisite jade box opened, it attracted the attention of the leader, Martial Emperor Lingxian, Yanghui. Brother Lingtian, it seems to be something my father left for me, Duan Lingtian said. This was also a small part of his recently recovered memories. You remembered your origin? Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Yang Hui's eyes lit up. No, Duan Lingtian shook his head. I've only recovered a portion of my memories, and I just happened to remember this item and its origin. As for other things, I still can't recall them. Towards the end, Duan Lingtian's brows furrowed tightly, as if he was struggling to remember something, but still came up empty-handed. So that's how it is. Yang Hui suddenly understood, seeing that Duan Lingtian seemed to be trying his best to recall something. He didn't ask any more questions, fearing that it would affect Duan Lingtian's mood again. Still can't remember. Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly. Although he remembered the origin of the exquisite jade box in his hand and knew that it was left by his cheap father, The memories related to his cheap father were extremely vague. He simply couldn't remember. The more he thought, the more his head hurt, and in the end, he still gained nothing. Perhaps, as Wang Ba said, I need time. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Over the past 6 months, his memories had been recovering, and many things he couldn't remember before, he could now recall. This made him have to believe what Wang Ba had said back then. According to Wang Ba, he would only need a little over a year to fully recover his memories. According to the partial memories I've temporarily recovered, there seems to be something my cheap father left behind in this jade box, and it's quite important. Out of curiosity, Duan Lingtian fully opened the already opened exquisite jade box, and everything inside the exquisite jade box was revealed before his eyes. Inside the exquisite jade box, a jade slip lay quietly. It was precisely a sound-condensing jade slip. Besides the sound-condensing jade slip, there was another thicker jade slip. Upon closer inspection, it didn't seem to be a jade slip, but rather a jade slip. Apart from the sound-condensing jade slip and the jade slip, there was nothing else inside the exquisite jade box. What is this? Looking at the jade slip, Duan Lingtian's face showed confusion. In his limited memories, there was no record of this item. Perhaps the part of my memory I lost knows what it is. The current Duan Lingtian, however, did not know that even if he fully recovered his memories, he would not be able to recognize what this jade slip was. Soon, Duan Lingtian picked up the sound-condensing jade slip. He still recognized the sound-condensing jade slip. It should be a message from my cheap father. Duan Lingtian's heart stirred. At the same time, he infused Yuanli into the sound-condensing jade slip in his hand, causing the sound-condensing jade slip to flash slightly, emitting a dazzling glow. Immediately, a familiar voice clearly entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Tianer, by the time you open the exquisite jade box and get this sound-condensing jade slip, your cultivation should have already broken through to the innate reversion to void stage. Innate reversion to void stage? Duan Lingtian was stunned. If it were before, he might not have known the meaning of innate reversion to void stage. But ever since Wang Ba told him, he knew that innate reversion to void stage was equivalent to the martial emperor realm of the Yunxiao continent. How would my cheap father know about the innate reversion to void stage? Duan Lingtian's heart was filled with doubts. Because he had lost some memories, the current Duan Lingtian did not know that his father had already taken his mother and the other 3 girls away from the Yunxiao continent to a distant place, suspected to be the Dao Martial Holy Land. Innate reversion to void stage, according to Wang Ba, seems to be the term used in that Dao Martial Holy Land. Duan Lingtian thought to himself, and at this moment, the familiar voice continued to come from the sound-condensing jade slip. The innate reversion to void stage is the Martial Emperor realm in the Yunxiao continent. Existences of the Martial Emperor realm can be considered to be at the peak in the Yunxiao continent, but in the Dao Martial Holy Land, they can only be considered at the peak of the mortal realm. Therefore, you must not be arrogant. At this time, you must be full of doubts and curiosity about the Dao Martial Holy Land. Father will casually explain it to you. The Dao Martial Holy Land is another continent in this world. Here, just like the Yunxiao continent, the law of the jungle, where the strong are respected, is upheld. However, a martial god in the Yunxiao continent cannot be considered a strong expert here. In the Dao Martial Holy Land, the peak of the mortal realm is the innate reversion to void stage. After stepping into the innate reversion to void stage and cultivating all the way to the peak of the innate realm, one must begin a true transformation. This transformation, in a common term, is transcendent. After the innate realm comes the transcendent realm. Stepping into the transcendent realm is considered truly stepping into the threshold of strong experts in the Dao Martial Holy Land. Above the transcendent realm is the saint entry realm. This is precisely what transcendent entry to saint means. And after the saint entry realm is the saint realm. In the Dao Martial Holy Land, the transcendent realm is considered stepping into the threshold of strong experts, but those publicly recognized as strong experts are all existences above the saint realm. Now, you should understand the meaning of the 8 characters. There are always people stronger, and heavens beyond heavens, right? Compared to the Dao Martial Holy Land, the Yunxiao continent is merely a mortal continent. The familiar voice continuously entered Duan Lingtian's ears, revealing another world to him. The the Tao Martial Holy Land. He had heard Wang Ba mention some things about the Tao Martial Holy Land before, so he wasn't too surprised. However, although he wasn't surprised, his heart was still filled with yearning, a yearning for the Tao Martial Holy Land. The Tao Martial Holy Land has many differences from the Yunxiao continent. For example, the Yunxiao continent only has martial cultivators, but in the Tao Martial Holy Land, besides martial cultivators, there are also Tao cultivators, and even demonic cultivators. In addition, in the Tao Martial Holy Land, even the most powerful existences will not trigger the power of heaven and earth to form a heaven and earth phenomenon. Also, the saint-grade martial arts of the Tao Martial Holy Land are the true techniques and methods. Martial skills on the Yunxiao continent, no matter how strong, are merely appendages to strength. In the Yunxiao continent, as long as one's strength is sufficient, even without using martial skills, one can defeat existences who cultivate heaven-grade martial skills but are much weaker in strength. However, in the Tao Martial Holy Land, this situation will not occur. In short, the Tao Martial Holy Land is a place full of miracles. Father didn't take you with him when he left the Yunxiao continent because he hoped you could temper yourself in the Yunxiao continent, so that you could better establish yourself in the Tao Martial Holy Land in the future. I hope you can understand Father's painstaking efforts and don't blame Father. Familiar voices kept echoing in Duan Ling Tian's ears, giving him a rough overview of some matters concerning the Tao Martial Saint Land. Many of these things left him puzzled. From what my cheap old man said, it seems he intentionally didn't take me to the Tao Martial Saint Land, and the reason he did that was to temper me. Duan Ling Tian looked confused. With his memory incomplete, he couldn't recall when exactly his cheap old man left Cloud Continent. Not only that, but he also discovered something extremely terrifying. That is, in his memories, although he knew he had a cheap old man, he couldn't recall anything about his appearance or other details. Soon, the familiar voice continued. Since you've already broken through to the innate rebirth stage, you now have the ability to cultivate saint-grade martial skills. Your father left you a set of saint-grade martial skills, hoping it will be of some help to you. I won't say any more unnecessary words. Your father has already arranged for someone. When you arrive at the Tao Martial Saint Land, go find him, and he will bring you to me. He is at. The voice stopped abruptly, as if it had been cut off before finishing, and Duan Ling Tian could tell that the voice was indeed suddenly interrupted. What's going on? At the most crucial moment, the voice was cut off. Duan Ling Tian looked dejected, and at the same time, he picked up the sound-condensing jade slip in his hand and carefully inspected it. Soon, he discovered several subtle cracks on the sound-condensing jade slip. The cracks on the sound-condensing jade slip. Could it be that I hit it when I violently opened it a few times before? Duan Ling Tian could easily guess this. The exquisite jade box was filled with hard jade walls, and anything inside would inevitably be damaged if shaken violently. This is a big problem. Father said he arranged for someone to pick me up and bring me to him when I arrive at the Tao Martial Saint Land. But now, the sound-condensing jade slip malfunctioned at the most critical moment, and I don't know where the person he arranged is. If I don't know where the person he arranged is, I won't be able to meet them, and they won't be able to take me to see him. As Duan Ling Tian felt depressed, a bitter smile involuntarily appeared at the corner of his mouth. It seems that even if I go to the Tao Martial Saint Land in the future, I won't be able to see my cheap old man immediately. Thinking of this, the bitter smile on Duan Ling Tian's face deepened. However, Duan Ling Tian quickly recovered. He knew in his heart that since the matter was already decided, it was useless to think about it any further. Father just said, he left me a set of saint-grade martial skills. Duan Ling Tian came back to his senses, put away the sound-condensing jade slip in his hand, and his gaze fell back into the exquisite jade box. Inside the exquisite jade box, besides the sound-condensing jade slip, there was only a thick jade slip left. This is the saint-grade martial skill Father left me? Duan Ling Tian looked at the jade slip, his expression a little dazed. However, he quickly reacted. He then took the jade slip out of the exquisite jade box, infused it with his elemental energy, intending to probe its mysteries. However, his elemental energy did not cause any resonance in the jade slip. Could it be that my cultivation is not enough, so I can't read the information inside? Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. Now, he could also guess that the Saint-grade martial skill his father mentioned in the sound-condensing jade slip should be stored in this jade slip. After trying elemental energy, Duan Ling Tian tried to integrate his spiritual power into the jade slip. Boom. And just as Duan Ling Tian's spiritual power touched the jade slip, vast and complex streams of information surged into his mind like a destructive force, becoming a part of his memory. All the information was like it was carved into his mind, impossible to forget. This is Saint-grade martial skills. After roughly reviewing the information from the jade slip, Duan Ling Tian's heart skipped a beat. This information was precisely a set of martial arts, a set of martial arts that surpassed high-grade heaven-rank martial arts. Of course, martial arts was the term used on Cloud Continent. In the Tao Martial Saint Land, it was called Saint-grade martial skills, which greatly helped martial artists. It could be said to be an important part of a martial artist's strength. Great Evolution Meteor Arrow. Soon, Duan Ling Tian learned the name of this Saint-grade martial skill, and also knew that it was a long-range offensive Saint-grade martial skill. To cultivate this Saint-grade martial skill, besides having a cultivation at the innate rebirth stage, one also needs a set of Saint-grade bows and arrows. All of this was information Duan Ling Tian learned from the Saint-grade martial skill, Great Evolution Meteor Arrow. Saint Weapon. Duan Ling Tian pondered slightly. I wonder if quasi-emperor grade spirit weapons, which are superior to first-grade spirit weapons, count as saint weapons. Wang Ba. Thinking of this, Duan Ling Tian began to call out to Wang Ba, or more precisely, Wang Ba's soul, which resided within him. So noisy. Kid, what do you want? This time, Wang Ba responded. From his sleepy voice, he had clearly just woken up. Wang Ba, what kind of weapon can be considered a saint weapon? Duan Ling Tian asked curiously. Saint weapon, don't you have one yourself? Wang Ba said grumpily. Isn't that sword of yours a low-grade human-rank saint weapon? Also, the guy at the innate rebirth stage whom you fought with the power of the demon sealing tablet, the long spear in his hand, was also a low-grade human-rank saint weapon, and the demon sealing tablet is a super saint weapon, a super saint weapon that surpasses high-grade heaven-rank saint weapons. Wang Ba finished in one breath. Low-grade human-rank saint weapon, high-grade heaven-rank saint weapon. Duan Ling Tian was stunned, and then couldn't help but ask curiously, how are the grades of saint weapons divided? Saint weapons are divided into three major ranks: heaven, earth, and human, namely heaven-rank saint weapons, earth-rank saint weapons, and human-rank saint weapons. Among them, heaven-rank saint weapons are the best, and human-rank saint weapons are the worst. And regardless of whether they are heaven-rank saint weapons, earth-rank saint weapons, or human-rank saint weapons, they are each divided into three grades: upper, middle, and lower. Upper grade is the best, and lower grade is the worst. Low-grade human-rank saint weapons are the worst saint weapons. High-grade heaven-rank saint weapons are the best saint weapons. Of course, this does not include the super saint weapons in the top 10 saint weapon list. Super saint weapons are saint weapons that surpass high-grade heaven-rank saint weapons. The demon sealing tablet is one such super saint weapon. Wang Ba continued, since it's a super saint weapon, why didn't you help me put it away back then? When Duan Ling Tian heard Wang Ba's words, he gained some understanding of saint weapons. At the same time, he felt very depressed. According to Wang Ba, that demon sealing tablet was originally his. However, it was discarded by Wang Ba. I said I don't like it. Wang Ba snorted. As a demonic cultivator, even if the demon sealing tablet was a super saint weapon, he couldn't use it. Not only could he not use it, but he would also suffer a backlash. Therefore, in his eyes, the demon sealing tablet was no different from trash. You just threw it away because you didn't like it? Hearing Wang Ba's words, Duan Ling Tian was instantly furious. A perfectly good super saint weapon was gone just like that, making it hard for him not to be depressed. Wang Ba couldn't use that super saint weapon, but he could, because he was not a demonic cultivator. Now, I can only wait until I recover my memory and recall where the demon sealing tablet was left before I go back and reclaim it. Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. Thinking of this, his mood improved significantly. According to Wang Ba, back then, after being demonized by the demon sealing tablet, he was fighting an innate rebirth stage martial artist, and when he left, he didn't take the demon sealing tablet with him. An innate rebirth stage martial artist was what was referred to as an emperor martial expert on Cloud Continent. Duan Ling Tian was confident that he would be able to reclaim the demon sealing tablet from that emperor martial expert in the future. Coming back to his senses, Duan Ling Tian relaxed his body, letting Emperor Marshal Xuanwu Yanghui carry him north, while reviewing the information about Great Evolution Meteor Arrow in his mind. The Great Evolution Meteor Arrow was a saint-grade martial skill. Its power was far beyond any martial skill he currently mastered, piercing a willow at 1,000 paces, never missing. This was the Great Evolution Meteor Arrow. If I want to cultivate this Great Evolution Meteor Arrow, I must first break through my cultivation to the Emperor Martial Realm. In addition, I also need to refine a set of saint-grade bows and arrows. Duan Ling Tian thought to himself, according to the parts of my memory that have recovered, as long as I have the materials, I can now refine a quasi-emperor grade spirit weapon. And the sword in my hand is indeed a quasi-emperor grade spirit weapon. Also, in my spatial ring, there seems to be an even more powerful spirit weapon than a quasi-emperor grade spirit weapon. It seems to be called an emperor grade spirit weapon. At this thought, Duan Ling Tian quietly took out a sword from his spatial ring. This sword was completely dull, as if it had returned to its original simplicity. And this sword indeed returned to its original simplicity, because it was not as simple as it appeared on the surface. It was an emperor-grade spirit weapon, level spirit sword, which was an emperor-grade spirit sword. Once used, it could amplify power by 1.2 times. Wang Ba, can you tell the grade of this sword? Duan Ling Tian asked Wang Ba again. Kid, are you done or not? Isn't this a mid-grade human-rank saint weapon? Wang Ba's voice came, initially a bit impatient, but when he discovered the emperor-grade spirit sword in Duan Ling Tian's hand, he couldn't help but exclaim, Kid, are you sure you're really from this mortal continent? Wang Ba's voice then came, full of suspicion. He couldn't help but be suspicious. On a small martial artist from a mortal continent, Dao Martial Saint Land, items kept appearing one after another. Just this alone made it hard not to be suspicious. Only a human-grade mid-rank saint weapon. Upon hearing Wang Ba's initial words, Duan Ling Tian was greatly disappointed, completely disregarding Wang Ba's subsequent remarks. First release on xianbibiqishangwen.com. According to my current memories, even if I break through to the Martial Emperor realm, I can only refine such a human-grade mid-rank saint weapon. Duan Ling Tian sighed, looking at the royal-grade spirit sword in his hand, then put it away. The quasi-royal-grade spirit weapons on Cloud Continent are equivalent to human-grade low-rank saint weapons in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Royal-grade spirit weapons are equivalent to human-grade mid-rank saint weapons. In an instant, Duan Ling Tian gained a certain understanding of the saint weapons in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Since the Tai Yin meteorite arrow can only be cultivated after I break through to the Martial Emperor realm, then I will wait until I break through to the Martial Emperor realm before refining a bow and arrows. Duan Ling Tian had a plan in mind. He wanted to refine a set of royal-grade spirit weapon level bow and arrows to cultivate the Tai Yin meteorite arrow. Royal-grade spirit weapons, which are also human-grade mid-rank saint weapons, are perfectly suitable for cultivating the Tai Yin meteorite arrow. As time passed, Duan Ling Tian completely focused his mind, no longer thinking about other things, and quietly cultivated the 9-Dragon War Sovereign technique, comprehending the two profound meanings. His strength was improving every moment. Although the speed of improvement was not fast, with the accumulation of time, the overall improvement was significant. Besides Duan Ling Tian, the other 9 people, including Zhou Di, Song Ting, and Zhong Un, the 3 direct disciples of Martial Emperor Ling Xian, were also currently cultivating with their eyes closed. Perhaps this was one of the reasons why Martial Emperor Ling Xian used his own power to bring a group of people to Mist Island. He wanted to give them more time to cultivate and comprehend in peace, to improve their strength as much as possible. After all, the trip to Mist Island was for the Mist Hidden Martial Arts Tournament. And in the Mist Hidden Martial Arts Tournament, the performance of the people he brought would affect his reputation and the reputation of his Ling Xian peak. So he had to care. It must be said that as a Martial Emperor Realm 4th level existence, Martial Emperor Ling Xian, Yang Hui, was very fast. It only took him 10 days to bring Duan Ling Tian and the other 10 people through the ice and snow-covered northern region of the Cloud Continent's interior, entering the Weak Water River. The Weak Water River surrounds the interior of the Cloud Continent and serves as the dividing line between the cloud continent's interior and exterior. In the northern part of the weak water river, goose feather-like snow was falling, but the river surface remained calm as ever, not frozen nor overly turbulent. At Yang Hui's speed, it only took a few days to successfully cross the weak water river with Duan Ling Tian and the others, entering the northern outer continent of the cloud continent. The northern outer continent was undoubtedly even colder. Goose feather-like snow fell relentlessly. However, when it reached the heads of the group led by Yang Hui, it seemed to be blocked by an invisible force, and the white snow that landed on the invisible force was constantly shaken off. Nevertheless, before being shaken off, the vast white snow still accumulated into a thick layer. The invisible force around the group, when contrasted with the newly fallen white snow, looked like a giant eggshell. And this was precisely the power of Yang Hui, the martial emperor Ling Xian, the power that propelled Duan Ling Tian and the other 10 forward. Besides propelling them forward, this power also completely blocked out the wind and snow. No matter how cold or harsh the external environment was, it could not affect them. Half a month later, Martial Emperor Ling Xian, Yang Hui, brought Duan Ling Tian and the other 10 people to the northern edge of the cloud continent's northern outer continent. Here, the ice and snow stopped, and the weather warmed up. Standing in the air, all that met the eye was a vast, boundless ocean. Looking into the distance, the blue sea and sky merged into one. At this moment, Yang Hui deliberately slowed down. We've reached the coast. Including Duan Ling Tian, the group gradually awakened, temporarily stopping their cultivation and focused on the boundless sea in front of them. Even an existence at the Martial Emperor realm first level would take half a year to leave the cloud continent and travel to Mist Island, one of the overseas Saint Islands. Duan Ling Tian recalled what Martial Emperor Ling Xian had said earlier. However, with Martial Emperor Ling Xian leading us, our flying speed is far superior to an existence at the Martial Emperor realm first level. We should be able to reach Mist Island in a few months at most. Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. Everyone looked at the boundless sea in front of them for a moment, then lost interest. The sea in front of them seemed unchanging, with nothing new or exciting, quickly causing everyone to lose interest. Continue on our way. Seeing this, Martial Emperor Ling Xian, Yang Hui, spoke indifferently, leading the group to continue towards the north. He had stopped just now to tell everyone in another way that they were about to leave the cloud continent. At this moment, under Yang Hui's leadership, the group officially left the cloud continent, entering the boundless sea, their target directly set for Mist Island. Master, after traveling some distance from the cloud continent, Yang Hui's third direct disciple, Zhongen, couldn't help but ask, I heard that there's a sea area a certain distance from the cloud continent that completely separates the overseas world from the cloud continent. And the power of heaven and earth there is entirely different from the power of heaven and earth in the cloud continent and its surrounding sea area. The power of heaven and earth in that overseas world will not condense in a heavenly phenomena. Is that really true? By the end of his question, Zhongyan's eyes were sparkling as he looked at Yang Hui. Won't condense in a heavenly phenomena. Hearing Zhong An's words, including Zhou Di and Song Ting, everyone's gaze also fell on Yang Hui, their eyes equally filled with curiosity. Even Duan Ling Tian was now looking at Yang Hui. According to the message in this sound-condensing jade slip left by my cheap old man, he only said that in the Dao martial saint land, when martial cultivators, Dao cultivators, and demonic cultivators make a move, they will not stir the power of heaven and earth to converge into heavenly phenomena. Duan Ling Tian's heart stirred. But according to Zhong An's words, as long as one leaves the sea area outside the cloud continent and enters the overseas world, from that point on, the power of heaven and earth will not converge into heavenly phenomena. Heavenly phenomena are formed when cloud continent martial artists stir the power of heaven and earth when making a move. On the cloud continent, anyone can determine a martial artist's specific strength by observing the heavenly phenomena formed by the power of heaven and earth when they make a move. For example, how many ancient giant elephant forces, how many ancient horned dragon forces, how many ancient azure dragon forces it is comparable to. All of these would be displayed in the form of heavenly phenomena, which are phantom images. However, after leaving the cloud continent and entering the overseas world, such heavenly phenomena would no longer appear? If that's really the case, heavenly phenomena can be considered a major characteristic of the cloud continent. Thinking of this, Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but think to himself. Indeed, facing Zhong An's inquiry, Yang Hui nodded. However, there is still some distance to that sea area at the speed I'm flying with you. We should be able to pass through that sea area in a month. Master, in a month, can you wake us up and let us witness it? Zhong An asked with sparkling eyes. Yes. Yang Hui first glanced at Duan Ling Tian, and seeing that Duan Ling Tian also seemed interested, he nodded. Immediately, Zhong An was filled with excitement, including Duan Ling Tian, Zhou Di, and Song Ting. The remaining 9 people also had expressions of anticipation, looking forward to the arrival of the month. Since they were born, they had lived on the cloud continent where, when they made a move, they could stir the power of heaven and earth to converge into heavenly phenomena. For them, heavenly phenomena had long become a part of their lives, and now, knowing that outside a certain sea area of the cloud continent, no matter how one makes a move, the power of heaven and earth will not be stirred to converge into heavenly phenomena. Everyone wanted to try it out and see if it was true, unless they personally experienced it. For them, everything was just a rumor and could not be taken seriously. For the next month, including Duan Ling Tian, the 10 people diligently cultivated their respective techniques, diligently comprehended their focused, profound meanings, and improved their strength. A month passed quickly. At this moment, Martial Emperor Ling Xian, Yang Hui, who was leading Duan Ling Tian and the others, also slowed down until he stopped. At Yang Hui's summons, Duan Ling Tian and Zhou Di were the first to awaken. Immediately after, Zhou Di woke up his 2 junior brothers, Song Ting and Zhong An. The rest of the people were also woken up by Zhong An. Duan Ling Tian stood in the air, looking around. All he saw was a vast ocean, with the sea and sky merging into one, making him feel as if he was in a blue world. The white clouds in the sky were the only embellishment in this blue world. Whoosh! Suddenly, as if a gust of wind blew, Yang Hui withdrew his power. Immediately, gusts of sea breeze blew, causing everyone's robes to flutter and rustle. At the same time, the salty smell of seawater, carried by the sea breeze, clearly entered everyone's nostrils, allowing them to smell the rich scent of the ocean. Master, have we left that sea area now? Zhou Di looked at Yang Hui and asked respectfully. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Yang Hui nodded faintly. Immediately, everyone, including Duan Ling Tian, had their eyes light up, and at the same time, surges of surging true essence began to rise from their bodies, as if transforming into clumps of towering milky white flames. Duan Ling Tian's true essence surged for a moment. Then he looked up at the top of his head. Above the void, it was calm. The power of heaven and earth seemed completely still. It really didn't stir the power of heaven and earth. If the power of heaven and earth wasn't even stirred, let alone converging into heavenly phenomena. Although he had been mentally prepared, Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but be surprised. Withdrawing his true essence, Duan Ling Tian's gaze fell on the others. He found that if it weren't for his spiritual power being able to roughly discern their cultivation levels, it would be impossible to determine their specific cultivation levels based solely on their true essence, which failed to stir the power of heaven and earth to form heavenly phenomena. It truly is the major thousand worlds are full of wonders. After leaving the Yunshao continent, the heaven and earth phenomenon formed by the condensation of the power of heaven and earth can no longer be seen. After confirming it completely, Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Like the others, he was used to the days of fighting side by side with the heaven and earth phenomenon. Now that he had left the Yunshao continent and it was gone, he really found it a bit difficult to adjust. It wasn't just Duan Ling Tian. Even the 9 people, including the 3 Martial Emperor's direct disciples, Zhou Di, Song Ting, and Zhong An, all felt a mysterious shock as they came to their senses. It's amazing. After leaving the Yunshao continent and coming to this overseas world, the power of heaven and earth really isn't triggered to gather into a heaven and earth phenomenon. In other words, in this overseas world, no matter how strong one's power is, their strength won't be easily exposed by the appearance of a heaven and earth phenomenon. What a truly magical overseas world. Many people whispered among themselves, their words filled with irrepressible sighs of wonder. After being shocked for a long while, the 10 people, including Duan Lingtian, finally came to their senses, each feeling as if they had entered a completely new world. This new world made them feel a shock from the bottom of their hearts. Soon, Martial Emperor Lingxian, Yang Hui, set off again. A majestic and vast invisible force swept out from him, pulling Duan Lingtian and his group along to continue their journey. Overseas Holy Island, Mist Concealment Island. That was their destination for this trip. Their purpose was to participate in the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering held on Mist Concealment Island. By then, they would encounter many experts who, like them, came from the Yunxiao continent. At our speed, how much longer will it take to reach Mist Concealment Island? Duan Lingtian looked at Martial Emperor Lingxian, Yang Hui, and asked curiously. About 2 months, Yang Hui replied. Hearing this, Duan Lingtian nodded in realization. Immediately after, he closed his eyes again. While he seemed to be resting with his eyes closed, he had actually begun to cultivate and started to comprehend his 2 types of profound truth. While Duan Lingtian and his group were getting closer and closer to Mist Concealment Island, the inland of the Yunxiao continent was also not peaceful. Originally, it was only the southern region of the Yunxiao continent's inland that was in an uproar because of the Lingtian sect. Then, the people of the Yunxiao continent's inland discovered that the habitually low-profile ancient clan, the Han clan, had actually joined in, even willingly acting as the pawn of the Lingtian sect. The experts of the Han clan came out in full force, sweeping across the Yunxiao continent's inland. In just 2 or 3 months, they made more than 80% of the first-rate factions in the inland willingly submit to the Lingtian sect. For a time, the Lingtian sect became famous in all directions, becoming a household name in the Yunxiao continent's inland. It was no longer limited to the southern region of the inland. It was worth mentioning that while the Han clan's experts were acting as the pawn for the Lingtian sect and intimidating many first-rate factions in the inland, another ancient clan had once intervened. According to that ancient clan, as members of a reclusive ancient clan, the Han clan should not have caused such a big commotion on the Yunxiao continent. Just when many people thought the 2 ancient clans were going to fight, that ancient clan suddenly backed down. Not only did they back down, they even willingly became a pawn of the Lingtian sect alongside the Han clan. For a time, the name of the Lingtian sect awed the entire Yunxiao continent's inland, and even spread to the outer lands at an extremely fast pace. In the history of the Yunxiao continent, there had never been such an exaggerated sect. I heard that the Lingtian sect was originally just an inconspicuous lower-tier first-rate faction in the southern region of our Yunxiao continent's inland, transformed from a lower-tier first-rate faction called the Yin-Yang sect. I've heard that too. It's just that I never expected this faction to rise so quickly and so exaggeratedly. The 2 major ancient clans of the Yunxiao continent are entities that even the Martial Emperor experts and Demon Emperor experts on the Yunxiao continent fear, yet they are actually willing to be its pawns and serve it hand and foot. It's truly unbelievable. I really don't know why the 2 major ancient clans are willing to be its pawns. You know, even the Martial Emperor experts and Demon Emperor experts on the Yunxiao continent might not necessarily have a way to make the 2 major ancient clans submit. Similar remarks were being spread everywhere in the Yunxiao continent's inland. Anyone who heard of the Lingtian sect became interested in it, and many exceptionally talented genius martial artists were fighting tooth and nail to join the Lingtian sect. Lingtian sect, a powerful force that could drive 2 major ancient clans, was enough to make anyone yearn for it. Another half a month passed. By this time, all the overt first-rate factions in the Yunxiao continent's inland had become vassals of the Lingtian sect. Besides paying a large amount of origin stones every year, they also had to send out some genius disciples. At the same time, the Lingtian sect moved its entire establishment, relocating its station to a more towering and upright peak in the central region of the Yunxiao continent's inland. This peak was larger and more expansive than the previous Lingtian peak. This peak was originally the station of an upper-tier first-rate faction in the Yunxiao continent's inland. Because it was favored by the acting sect master of Lingtian sect, Han Shuanai, the Han clan took it for themselves and gave it to Han Shuanai, and thus to the Lingtian sect. From now on, this will be the new Lingtian peak. As the Lingtian sect completely moved to this new station, Han Shuanai ordered all the people of the Lingtian sect to gather and announced calmly. Her voice was not loud, but it clearly reached the ears of everyone present. For a moment, except for the three little fellows following Han Shu and I whose faces remained calm, the rest of the group were all beaming with joy, unable to suppress their excitement. Of course, while the group was beaming with joy, their gazes toward Han Shu and I were filled with awe from the bottom of their hearts. It was this yellow-clothed maiden, who appeared to be only 15 or 16 years old, who first led the three little monsters by her side to sweep through the first-rate factions in the southern region of the Yunshao continent, and then even made the ancient Han clan serve their Ling Tian sect. Not only that, when another ancient clan wanted to stop the Han clan from helping their Ling Tian sect, it was also this young girl who stepped in. She not only resolved the situation for the Han clan, but also made that ancient clan honestly work for her and the Ling Tian sect. Although they didn't know the specific process, the result made every one of them feel inexplicably shocked. What exactly is the background of the sect master's sister? Not only is she powerful herself, but she also has three strong little fellows by her side. That aside, the most exaggerated thing is that she can even make the two major ancient clans of the Yunshao continent serve her. It's truly inconceivable. Many people were shocked in their hearts, their thoughts racing. Even Xiongquan, although he had long realized that Han Shu and I was not simple, never expected it to be so exaggerated. A young girl like her has such ability. Looking across the entire Yunshao continent, I'm afraid no one can compare to her. Who exactly is she? Xiongquan's heart was filled with curiosity about Han Shu and I's identity and origin. However, regardless, after all the commotion, the Ling Tian sect had become a top-tier power on the Yunshao continent, at the peak of its prosperity. A force that could make two major ancient clans serve it was enough to make anyone wary. It was also because most of the Martial Emperor experts and Demon Emperor experts on the Yunshao continent had recently taken people and left the Yunshao continent for Mist Concealment Island to participate in the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering. Otherwise, even more people would have been inexplicably shocked by the matters of the Ling Tian sect. Even those Martial Emperor experts and Demon Emperor experts would be no exception. Now, our Ling Tian sect already stands at the peak of the Yunshao continent. However, the sect master of our Ling Tian sect is still nowhere to be found. Han Shu and I looked around at the group of people and spoke slowly. Therefore, I order, from today onwards, all the focus of our Ling Tian sect will shift to the matter of finding the sect master. Starting today, the Ling Tian sect will issue a reward. Anyone who helps our Ling Tian sect find sect master, Duan Ling Tian, will receive a reward of 1,000 top-grade origin stones. Later, Han Shu and I added, this reward is equally valid for the elders and disciples of our Ling Tian sect. 1,000 top-grade origin stones. Hearing Han Shu and I's words, many people's eyes lit up, as if they saw 1,000 top-grade origin stones beckoning to them. 1,000 top-grade origin stones were enough to drive most people crazy. Additionally, I will have the people of the two major ancient clans help search for our Ling Tian sect's sect master together. Han Shu and I continued. As soon as Han Shu and I said this, many people showed anxious expressions, seemingly afraid that the people of the two major ancient clans would snatch their reward of 1,000 top-grade origin stones. And the reward issued by Han Shu and I quickly spread out from the Ling Tian sect. Ling Tian sect, searching for sect master Duan Ling Tian. Anyone who provides clues and helps the Ling Tian sect find Duan Ling Tian can receive the reward of 1,000 top-grade origin stones. For a time, anyone who heard of this reward went completely crazy. 1,000 top-grade origin stones. Even the upper-tier first-rate factions in the Yunshao continent's inland could not produce so many top-grade origin stones at a moment's notice. The value of so many top-grade origin stones could well be imagined. While everyone in the Ling Tian sect was frantically searching for Duan Ling Tian's whereabouts, Han Shu and I temporarily left the Ling Tian sect. She made a trip to the locations of the two major ancient clan stations. On that same day, she left the two major ancient clans again. At this time, the two major ancient clans also began to send people to search extensively for the whereabouts of the Ling Tian sect's sect master, Duan Ling Tian, not daring to be negligent in the slightest. Lingxian Peak was not far from the Ling Tian sect's new station. Since the master of Lingxian Peak, Martial Emperor Lingxian, left with the 10 most outstanding people under his command, The atmosphere in Lingxian Peak had been far from what it used to be, remaining lifeless ever since. It wasn't until the reward from the Lingtian sect reached Lingxian Peak that Lingxian Peak became lively again. For a time, many Martial Emperor disciples and followers temporarily left Lingxian Peak because of the reward. If you think Heavenly War Venerable is very good, then please recommend this site's URL to your little friends to watch together. Lingtian Sect, Duan Lingtian. Inside Lingxian Peak, two young men who looked exactly alike exchanged glances, both seeing shock and astonishment in the other's eyes. Nangong Chun. Do you think the sect leader Duan Lingtian, that Lingtian sect, is looking for could be the Duan Lingtian we know? The young man in red, after swallowing hard, looked at the young man in blue and asked with a dazed expression. The time the Lingtian sect leader, Duan Lingtian, disappeared almost perfectly matches the time we met Duan Lingtian. Moreover, when we met Duan Lingtian, he had just lost his memory. The stern-faced young man in blue deduced logically. Gulp. The red-clothed young man swallowed hard again, and after a long while, he said with some difficulty, "With your deduction, it really does all match. In that case, the sect leader Duan Lingtian, that Lingtian sect is looking for is precisely the Duan Lingtian we know." By the end of his words, the red-clothed young man's face was filled with horror and shock. Lingtian sect, in just a few months, with the help of the two ancient clans, swept through all the first-rate forces in the inner land of Cloud Continent. Immediately after, the red-clothed young man gasped, muttering, "Duan Lingtian's sect is a bit too terrifying, isn't it? Although Duan Lingtian's strength is great, it's not enough to intimidate the two ancient clans." The cool-looking young man in blue said, "Furthermore, Duan Lingtian has already left Lingxian Peak with Emperor Wu Lingxian, leaving Cloud Continent, which means the commotion Lingtian sect is causing now has nothing to do with Duan Lingtian. No matter what, we should make a trip to Lingtian sect. Once we confirm that the Duan Lingtian we know is the sect leader Duan Lingtian they are looking for, we can at least greet Lingtian sect." The red-clothed young man said. "Let's go." The young man in blue, a man of few words, vanished as soon as he spoke. The red-clothed young man quickly followed, leaving Lingxian Peak with him. The twin brothers who left Lingxian Peak were Nangong Chun and Nangong Yi. After leaving Lingxian Peak, they headed straight for Lingtian Peak, the headquarters of Lingtian sect. The new headquarters of Lingtian sect, after their entire family moved, was very close to Lingxian Peak. It only took a few days for the Nangong brothers to arrive outside Lingtian Peak, where they were stopped by several patrolling Lingtian sect disciples. "This is the headquarters of Lingtian sect. Idlers are not allowed." The leading Lingtian sect disciple looked at the Nangong brothers and said indifferently, "We want to see the person currently in charge of your Lingtian sect." Nangong Yi said unhurriedly, "Our acting sect leader of Lingtian sect is not someone just anyone can meet." The leading Lingtian sect disciple said, "What if I say I know where Duan Lingtian is?" Nangong Yi asked again. Boom. Nangong Yi's words were like a bolt from the blue, stunning the Lingtian sect disciples into a daze. It took them a while to react. You said you know our sect leader?" The eyes of several Lingtian sect disciples were somewhat blank. The leading Lingtian sect disciple was a tall, middle-aged man. Now, hearing Nangong Yi's words, a strange gleam flickered deep within his eyes. Humph! Suddenly, the middle-aged man's face darkened, and he let out a low huff. "Ever since our Lingtian sect announced the bounty, many people have claimed to know the whereabouts of our Lingtian sect leader. However, all the information has been false. Among them, some also said they wanted to see our acting sect leader, but their real intention was to sneak into our Lingtian sect and plot something ill. You say you know where our Lingtian sect leader is. Why should we believe you?" By the end of his words, the middle-aged man asked indifferently, "As long as I meet the person currently in charge of your Lingtian sect, I will naturally make him believe me." Nangong Yi said. On their way to Lingtian sect, they had learned a few more things, including the origin of Lingtian sect leader Duan Lingtian. He came from the southern outer land of Cloud Continent. The southern outer land was the common homeland for them and the Duan Lingtian they knew. Therefore, at that time, they completely confirmed it. The Lingtian sect leader Duan Lingtian was the same person as the Duan Lingtian they knew. It was just that Duan Lingtian later suffered something unknown, suddenly lost his memory and even forgot his own name until he coincidentally met them, only then learning his name. Then, they went to Lingxian Peak with Duan Lingtian. Later, although the three of them failed to become Emperor Wu's disciples or followers at Lingxian Peak, their treatment there was no less than that of Emperor Wu Lingxian's three personal disciples. They could enjoy all this thanks to Duan Lingtian. For this, they had sighed more than once in their hearts. As long as it's gold, it will shine no matter where it goes. Come with me. The leading Lingtian sect disciple, the tall middle-aged man, after taking a deep look at Nangong Yi and then at Nangong Chun, said indifferently, "You all continue patrolling." Before taking the Nangong brothers away, the middle-aged man looked at the other Lingtian sect disciples and ordered. Yes, the Lingtian sect disciples respectfully acknowledged the order and then departed. "Gentlemen, please." After greeting the Nangong brothers, the middle-aged man was the first to fly out, but the direction he flew in was opposite to Lingtian Peak. Immediately, Nangong Yi frowned and asked, "Where are you taking us?" "You two don't know. Our acting sect leader of Lingtian sect is not usually on Lingtian Peak. She usually cultivates in a valley 1,000 miles east of our Lingtian Peak," the middle-aged man said. "So that's how it is." Nangong Yi suddenly understood. Then he and Nangong Chun followed the middle-aged man, heading straight east. However, 1,000 miles to the east, the Nangong brothers found themselves in a boundless desert. Looking around, they saw no valleys, not even a single mountain. This place was simply a godforsaken wasteland. You lied to us." At this moment, the Nangong brothers finally realized. Nangong Yi looked angrily at the middle-aged man and coldly shouted, "Gentlemen, I did not lie to you." The middle-aged man stood aside, looking indifferently at the Nangong brothers, and said, "I am merely fulfilling my duty. Only by confirming that you truly know where our Lingtian sect leader is can I take you to meet our current acting sect leader of Lingtian sect." Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Nangong Yi's expression softened slightly. "If that's the case, then you really don't need to do this. We are friends with your Lingtian sect leader Duan Lingtian. We." Immediately after, Nangong Yi recounted how he had encountered Duan Lingtian after his memory loss, and also described Duan Lingtian's characteristics. "It really is the sect leader." The middle-aged man's eyes suddenly lit up, his breathing became a little hurried, and at the same time, he looked at Nangong Yi, asking somewhat eagerly, "Where is our sect leader?" "It's enough that you confirm the person we're talking about is your Lingtian sect leader," Nangong Yi said indifferently. "As for his whereabouts, once we meet your current acting sect leader of Lingtian sect, I will naturally explain it to him in detail." At this moment, a sense of caution grew in his heart. The Lingtian sect disciple in front of him gave him a feeling he had to be wary of. "If you don't explain this, I will not take you to meet our acting sect leader of Lingtian sect." The middle-aged man shook his head and said, "You might know our missing sect leader of Lingtian sect, but you might not necessarily know where he is. I must warn you, our acting sect leader is busy with many affairs, and if you meet her and cannot tell her where the sect leader is, she will kill you in a fit of rage. You don't need to worry about that," Nangong Yi said confidently. Seeing Nangong Yi so confident, a faint, almost imperceptible greed rose in the depths of the middle-aged man's eyes, though he still pretended to be calm and said, "Gentlemen, I think you'd best explain the whereabouts of our Lingtian sect leader to me first. Otherwise, I won't be able to account for it to the acting sect leader." The fox's tail finally shows. I think you yourself have become greedy and want that 1,000 high-grade origin stones reward, don't you? From beginning to end, Nangong Chun, who had been standing stern-faced beside Nangong Yi, rarely spoke, but when he did, he let out a cold snort, his sarcasm undisguised. "Unless we see your acting sect leader of Lingtian sect, we will not reveal Duan Lingtian's whereabouts." Nangong Yi also looked at the middle-aged man with a wary expression. Now, he had also completely confirmed that the middle-aged man in front of him might have intended from the very beginning to learn Duan Lingtian's whereabouts from them. Then, he would claim the reward offered by Lingtian sect himself, 1,000 high-grade origin stones. Ha ha! Hearing the Nangong brothers' words, the middle-aged man couldn't help but burst into laughter. After a long while, the laughter finally ceased. "I didn't expect you to find out." The middle-aged man looked at the Nangong brothers, a cold smile playing on his lips. However, Do you still have any other choice now? If you don't tell me the whereabouts of our Ling Tian sect leader, I will kill you immediately." By the end of his words, cold light flickered in the middle-aged man's eyes, and his killing intent was palpable. "We are friends of your sect leader. How dare you kill us?" Nangong Yi's face darkened. "In this godforsaken place, even if I kill you, how would the sect leader ever know?" The middle-aged man said indifferently, "You, a mere Ling Tian sect disciple, dare to boast about killing us? How ridiculous." Nangong Yi let out a low huff, a cold smile on his face, while his yuan li surged. The void above his head trembled, and the power of heaven and earth stirred, forming a heaven and earth phenomenon that displayed his cultivation of Martial Emperor Realm, 6th level. Martial Emperor Realm, 6th level, is indeed surprising. Unfortunately, I am not a Ling Tian sect disciple, but an elder of Ling Tian sect. The middle-aged man spoke indifferently, and his yuan li also surged. Whoosh! As the power of heaven and earth above the middle-aged man's head fluctuated, a heaven and earth phenomenon appeared. A phantom of an ancient flood dragon, plus 1,000 phantoms of ancient horn dragons. 8th level Martial Emperor Realm. The scene before them made the Nangong brothers' expressions change dramatically. They hadn't expected the other party to be so strong. No wonder he confidently brought them to this secluded place. Soon, the Nangong brothers engaged in battle with the middle-aged man. Among the Nangong brothers, even the stronger Nangong Chun was only at the 7th level Martial Emperor Realm, and even with his full power, he was still a notch inferior to the opponent. Fortunately, Nangong Yi was assisting him. However, as time passed, the Nangong brothers found themselves in increasingly perilous situations. If the opponent hadn't still wanted to pry Duan Ling Tian's whereabouts out of them, they might have already died. Of course, they knew in their hearts, even if they revealed Duan Ling Tian's whereabouts, the opponent would still not spare them. They were well aware of this. Escape. Finally, the Nangong brothers chose to flee. Trying to escape? Watching the Nangong brothers fly away, the middle-aged man showed disdain and a cold sneer. In his opinion, these two couldn't defeat him even when working together, so it was impossible for them to escape under his nose. However, when he gave chase, he quickly realized that things were not as he thought. The speed of the blue-clothed youth's movement technique was even superior to his own, and even when carrying the other red-clothed youth, their speed was still not inferior to his. Whoosh! Nangong Chun took the lead, fleeing with Nangong Yi. Although their speed was somewhat slowed, it was still not inferior to the middle-aged man who was hot on their heels. Fortunately, my movement technique is far superior to his. Nangong Chun felt a lingering fear, just as the Nangong brothers were being pursued. Inside Lingxian Peak, several Lingxian Peak Martial Emperor disciples responsible for intelligence were gathered in a secluded cave, whispering amongst themselves. Based on my various deductions, it can now be basically confirmed. Adult Ling Tian is the sect master of Ling Tian sect that they are currently searching for. One of them said, "Now, both Adult Martial Emperor and Adult Ling Tian are not here. Even Adult Ling Tian's two friends have left Lingxian Peak. What should we do? Go to Ling Tian sect and reveal Adult Ling Tian's whereabouts." Another person asked, "What? Do you want those 1,000 top-grade origin stones?" Someone else sneered, "This matter. Let's wait for Adult Martial Emperor and Adult Ling Tian to return and let them decide. As for Ling Tian sect, it's best to let Adult Ling Tian make his own decision after he returns." The last person said. The last person's words were approved by the other three. "Since that's the case, we'll leave this matter alone for now. We'll explain it to Adult Martial Emperor and Adult Ling Tian when they return." It's decided then. The Lingxian Peak Martial Emperor disciples responsible for intelligence decided to keep quiet about Duan Ling Tian and wait until Lingxian Martial Emperor and Duan Ling Tian returned. It was precisely because of their decision and the Nangong brothers being pursued that Han Xuanai and the people of Ling Tian sect only later learned of Duan Ling Tian's whereabouts. Duan Ling Tian was unaware of all this. He was currently being taken by Lingxian Martial Emperor towards Mist Hidden Island, getting closer and closer to it. At some point, Duan Ling Tian, who was being carried by Lingxian Martial Emperor on their journey, woke up from his cultivation. He looked up and saw layers of mist appearing in the distance. The mist obscured his vision, completely blocking the scenery ahead. Enter the misty area ahead, and in about 10 days, we will reach Mist Hidden Island. Lingxian Martial Emperor, Yang Hui noticed Duan Ling Tian had woken up immediately and told him, 10 days? That's very soon. Duan Ling Tian nodded. Overseas Sacred Island, Mist Hidden Island. It would only take about 10 days to reach. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian's mood was more or less affected. After all, this was the first time in his life he had left the Cloud Continent. We've been away from the Cloud Continent for so long. Haven't any demonic beasts attacked us along the way? Duan Ling Tian asked Yang Hui, feeling quite curious about this. How could there not be? Yang Hui said. Along the way, at least 10 demonic beasts with demonic Emperor realm cultivation tried to attack us. I killed 3 of them, and the rest were scared away. Scared away? Just as Duan Ling Tian was stunned, he saw the calm sea ahead suddenly churn. A colossal creature, with lightning speed, emerged from the sea, rising into the air and blocking their path. This was a demonic beast the size of a small mountain, standing there, giving off immense pressure. This demonic beast was completely black, covered in regular scales, with 4 sharp claws that resembled eagle talons. From a distance, it looked like a giant bear standing there. Even its head greatly resembled a bear's. This is a black scale bear, one of the unique demonic beasts of the overseas. This kind of demonic beast possesses strength comparable to a first-level martial emperor martial artist, and its raw strength is astonishing. However, although it possesses the strength of a first-level demonic emperor, it is different from ordinary first-level demonic emperor beings. The black scale bear has extremely low intelligence and cannot transform into human form. Just as Duan Ling Tian was carefully observing the mountain-sized demonic beast before him, Yang Hui's words reached his ears. Black scale bear? Duan Ling Tian nodded in understanding, and at the same time, his pupils suddenly constricted. Because he saw the black scale bear move, its mountain-like body charged towards them, its speed so fast that it was not affected in the slightest by its seemingly clumsy body. I encountered a black scale bear half a month ago and killed it with 1 sword. Brother Ling Tian, why don't you give it a try? Because of its extremely low intelligence and inability to transform, this black scale bear is different from ordinary demonic emperors. It doesn't use spirit weapons. Seeing the black scale bear charging, Yang Hui seemed not at all nervous, but rather looked at Duan Ling Tian. First-level demonic emperor realm doesn't use spirit weapons. In Duan Ling Tian's memory, let alone demonic emperors, even demonic emperors and void transformation realm demonic beasts that could transform into human form were no different from humans. They would also use spirit weapons in battle. Leave it to me. Duan Ling Tian moved, leaving the protective shield formed by Yang Hui's power, and met the black scale bear. In his opinion, a first-level emperor realm demonic beast, like the black scale bear, which couldn't use spirit weapons, posed no threat to him. In fact, he was confident he could kill it with a single punch without even using a spirit weapon. Dragon soaring 9 heavens. Duan Ling Tian's figure moved, and the 5-colored power surging from his body trailed a long rainbow, as if transforming into a 5-colored divine dragon, directly streaking towards the black scale bear. Roar! At this moment, the black scale bear also noticed Duan Ling Tian attacking it. It let out a loud roar, and its sharp claws whistled out, creating bursts of piercing wind. The claws were like lightning, meeting Duan Ling Tian who was charging towards it. Facing the black scale bear's sharp claws, Duan Ling Tian showed no intention of dodging. He met them with a calm expression, as if willingly extending his head under someone else's guillotine. This scene, even for the experienced Yang Hui, caused a moment of surprise. Great skill begets great courage. In his mind, this thought suddenly popped up. Just as the black scale bear's sharp claws were about to land on Duan Ling Tian's body, at the critical moment, Duan Ling Tian's expression tightened slightly. The next moment, 9 dragons body protection. In an instant, Duan Ling Tian's internal origin energy surged, then left his body without reservation, perfectly merging with the 2 profundities he had comprehended. Fusion profundity, sword profundity. The 5-colored power emanating a sharp aura around Duan Ling Tian's body, when the black scale bear's sharp claws were within reach, transformed into 5 5-colored divine dragons, rapidly circling Duan Ling Tian's body. Almost at the same time, a layer of 5-colored light cover appeared around Duan Ling Tian's body, and the black scale bear's sharp claws, containing extremely terrifying power, finally landed on it. Boom, 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 boom. boom. The black scale bear's sharp claws landed on the five-colored light barrier around Duan Ling Tian's body, instantly emitting thunderous roars, accompanied by waves of shockwaves sweeping out in all directions. With Duan Ling Tian and the black scale bear as the center, the shockwaves spread and swept out. Besides causing the surrounding air to be almost completely sucked out, even the sea surface beneath their feet was pressed down by the shockwaves. This section of the sea surface was pressed down, and the seawater was completely squeezed to the surroundings, creating a surge of terrifying waves. Roar! As the shock waves gradually weakened, the black scale bear roared loudly again. This time, its roar was clearly filled with extreme fury. This anger stemmed from Duan Ling Tian. Seeing Duan Ling Tian unharmed after taking its attack, the black scale bear became enraged. Completely enraged. Its sharp claws were raised high again, as if wanting to try again. What? Not convinced. Seeing the black scale bear's movements, Duan Ling Tian smiled faintly, showing no intention of stopping it. Soon, the black scale bear's sharp claws fell again. This time, the power was even stronger, almost using all of its strength, without reservation. Boom, 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 boom. Thunderous roars sounded again, creating even more terrifying shockwaves. Accompanying these loud noises were continuous air explosions in the air, and the sound of terrifying waves created by the squeezed sea surface crashing. What a powerful defensive martial skill! Yang Hui's eyes lit up, and his face showed surprise. He had long since stopped, and inside the protective shield formed by his power, Zhou Di and the other 9 were cultivating on their own, undisturbed. Inside the protective shield, no sound from outside could be heard. The shockwaves that swept out with Duan Ling Tian and the black scale bear as the center, although they made the almost transparent protective shield tremble, they failed to break through it. My 9 Dragons body protection has also entered the Great Completion realm. Once it enters the Perfect realm, I will be able to condense 9 divine dragons to protect my body around me. Looking at the 5-colored divine dragons rapidly circling his body, Duan Ling Tian murmured. The 5-colored light barrier formed by the rapid movement of the 5 divine dragons remained unbroken, even after the ink scale bear's full power attack. Roar! The ink scale bear roared loudly again, but this time, its roar was filled with a hint of fear. Clearly, the ink scale bear had realized Duan Ling Tian's formidable strength. It was scared. Although its intelligence was low, that was only in comparison to typical martial emperors. Facing an opponent who remained completely unharmed after its full power attacks, it was utterly terrified. Its mountain-like body trembled, and it suddenly turned around, intending to flee. Don't be in such a hurry to leave. As the saying goes, courtesy demands reciprocity. If you can withstand 2 of my attacks and survive, I will spare your life. Facing the fleeing ink scale bear, Duan Ling Tian's eyes turned cold. Then, his figure moved, and he once again used dragons soaring through 9 heavens, catching up to the ink scale bear in an instant. Even without a spirit weapon, Duan Ling Tian's power surpassed that of the ink scale bear. This was evident from how easily he had blocked the ink scale bear's full power attack with a defensive martial skill earlier. Therefore, he easily caught up to the ink scale bear and blocked its path. Before the ink scale bear could react, Duan Ling Tian moved, once again employing the movement martial skill dragon soaring through 9 heavens. His entire being seemed to transform into a 5-colored divine dragon, charging towards the ink scale bear. Whoosh! Without using any martial skill, Duan Ling Tian threw a lightning-fast punch, striking the ink scale bear squarely in the chest, a solid hit. Boom! A loud bang echoed as the power from Duan Ling Tian's fist surged into the ink scale bear's chest like a destructive force, causing the void to tremble and unleashing a rolling shockwave. Boom, 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 boom. The shockwaves continuously raged and swept out, creating a series of thunderous roars, far louder than when the ink scale bear had attacked Duan Ling Tian earlier. Ow! The ink scale bear let out a deafening shriek, and its massive body was sent flying. Like an arrow released from a bowstring, it flew over 100 meters before its speed finally slowed. Roar! After its mountain-like figure came to a halt, the ink scale bear glared at Duan Ling Tian with fierce eyes, then suddenly plummeted, intending to escape into the sea. How is that possible? It's not dead. Seeing the ink scale bear only shriek twice before springing back to life and fleeing into the sea. Duan Ling Tian was stunned. With that punch just now, he had not only unleashed all of his elemental energy, but also his fusion profundity and sword profundity without any reservation. Originally, he believed that given the ink scale bear's strength, that one punch would be more than enough to kill it. However, the outcome was completely beyond his expectations. The ink scale bear possesses incredibly formidable scales. Even if I were to give it a full power punch like you did, it might not necessarily die. At the same time, the elemental energy voice transmission of Martial Emperor Ling Xian, Yang Hui, reached Duan Ling Tian's ears, waking him from his stupor. Its defense is that strong? Duan Ling Tian was immediately shocked upon hearing this. It seemed that heaven was fair. While the ink scale bear had low intelligence and could not transform into human form, it was endowed with an indestructible body. Seeing the ink scale bear about to plunge into the sea, Duan Ling Tian moved again, blocking its path before it could enter the water. I said, if you can withstand 2 of my attacks and survive, I will let you go. Before my second attack, don't even think about escaping. Duan Ling Tian said coldly, not caring whether the ink scale bear understood his words. Earlier, he had actually just said that casually, because, in his previous estimation, he would only need 1 attack to kill the ink scale bear. Who would have thought that the ink scale bear's scales would be so terrifying, blocking almost all of the attack, and it seemed hardly injured after taking his full power punch. Roar! The ink scale bear roared loudly, seemingly realizing that it couldn't escape unless this human was eliminated, and it charged forward again with fierce momentum. Facing the ink scale bear's rapidly approaching claws, Duan Ling Tian's eyes remained calm as he quietly watched the beast. 9 dragons' body protection. Around his body, 5 divine dragons reappeared, rapidly moving and forming a 5-colored light barrier. Boom, 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 boom. The ink scale bear attacked Duan Ling Tian like a madman, striking out with claw after claw, its lightning-fast attacks falling like rain, continuously landing on the 5-colored light barrier around Duan Ling Tian's body. However, its attacks, from beginning to end, only created ripples like waves on the 5-colored light barrier, as if it were merely tickling him. What is he doing? Yang Hui stood there unmoving like a mountain, allowing the rolling shock waves to sweep out, not even having his robes ruffled. Now, looking at Duan Ling Tian standing there in a daze, he couldn't help but show a puzzled expression. A moment later, he got his answer. Wind lightning finger. Duan Ling Tian, who had been standing there in a daze, suddenly moved. With a raised hand, he pointed a finger directly at the ink scale bear's chest, which was continuously attacking him. To be precise, his finger was aimed at a spot at the junction of the ink scale bear's chest and neck. There was a small gap there not covered by scales. The gap was very small. If one didn't observe carefully, it would be hard to notice. Wind lightning finger was a set of offensive martial skills included in the 9-Dragon War Sovereign Art. It was only a Earth-grade martial skill, and Duan Ling Tian hadn't used it for a long time. However, when executed by Duan Ling Tian now, it still generated a steady wind and had an imposing momentum. Fusion profundity replaced wind profundity. Sword profundity replaced lightning profundity. With a single point of his finger, the 2 profundities followed like shadows, effortlessly piercing into the small gap at the junction of the ink scale bear's chest and neck, like cutting through tofu. As the finger landed, fresh blood splattered. During this process, Duan Ling Tian felt no resistance whatsoever. As his finger pierced into the ink scale bear, several finger force strikes shot from his fingertip, violently churning inside the ink scale bear's body. Immediately, the ink scale bear's mountain-like body trembled violently. A woo! A woo! Accompanied by a series of shrill screams, the ink scale bear's voice grew fainter and fainter until it finally completely died out. The ink scale bear's massive body plummeted from the sky. Inner core. Seeing the ink scale bear about to fall into the sea, Duan Ling Tian moved. With one arm, he forcefully lifted the ink scale bear, and with his other hand, he took out his spirit sword and stabbed it into the wound on the ink scale bear's body. The rest was simple. Duan Ling Tian used the wound on the ink scale bear's body as a starting point, and along the tiny gaps between the scales, he forcefully tore open the scales on the ink scale bear's body, extracting a pill-shaped object that glowed with a faint luster. It was precisely the ink scale bear's inner core. After extracting the profundity fragments from the ink scale bear's body, Duan Ling Tian finally allowed the ink scale bear to fall into the sea with a loud boom, creating countless splashes. In the distance, Yang Hui looked surprised. What incredible insight! In just a few breaths, he saw through the ink scale bear's weakness. Recalling the scene just now, Yang Hui couldn't help but sigh in admiration. He still remembered. Back then, when he first went to sea and encountered an ink scale bear, it took him over an hour to find that weakness of the ink scale bear. But the purple-clad young man, not far away, only took a few breaths. It was shockingly fast. After putting away his spoils of war, Duan Ling Tian returned to Yang Hui's side and asked curiously, "Are all the demon beasts overseas strong, unable to transform, and low in intelligence?" "Of course not." Yang Hui shook his head. "Overseas, existences like the ink scale bear in the Martial Emperor realm are only a minority. Most Martial Emperor realm demon beasts are like the Martial Emperors on Cloud Continent. Just like the Emperor-level demon beasts encountered along the way, those I killed were like the ink scale bear, and the other Emperor-level demon beasts were all capable of transforming into human form and had intelligence no less than humans." Yang Hui said, "I see." Duan Ling Tian nodded in realization. It was also because Duan Ling Tian hadn't fully recovered his memories yet. Otherwise, he would definitely have known this from the Reincarnation Martial Emperor's memories, as the Reincarnation Martial Emperor had also left Cloud Continent before. Although he hadn't ventured deep into the ocean, he had spent some time overseas and encountered many overseas demon beasts, including quite a few in the Martial Emperor realm. Soon, Yang Hui continued to lead Duan Ling Tian and the others on their journey. As they got closer to Mist Island, Duan Ling Tian stopped cultivating. His mind was completely immersed in the memories he had recovered over the past few months. He found that this period of memory was extremely rich. First, he recalled some of his previous experiences, starting from the time he left the southern outer land of Cloud Continent and crossed the Weak Water River. Most of those memories had returned. Crossing the Weak Water River, subduing Jin Sha, destroying the violent Bristly Rat clan, breaking into the Yin-Yang sect, establishing the Ling Tian sect. The memories since crossing the Weak Water River grew like bamboo shoots after rain, taking root in Duan Ling Tian's mind. Everything seemed to have happened just yesterday. Tian Wu. Soon, he remembered Feng Tian Wu, the woman who had always been by his side but whose origins he couldn't recall, imprisoned in the Lost Stone Forest. He also remembered his encounter in the Lost Stone Forest. The demon sealing tablet. He also remembered the battle in the Lost Stone Forest, the demon sealing tablet assisting him in demonizing to fight fiercely with Martial Emperor Shi, and then his consciousness completely fading. He remembered all of this. So, the demon sealing tablet was left in the Lost Stone Forest, and Tian Wu is also in the Lost Stone Forest. At some point, cold light flickered in Duan Ling Tian's eyes, filled with killing intent. "Brother Yang." Duan Ling Tian looked at Yang Hui and greeted him proactively. Yang Hui looked at Duan Ling Tian in confusion. "Brother Ling Tian, is something wrong?" "Brother Yang, I want to know, will Martial Emperor Shi from the Lost Stone Forest bring people to this Mist Island martial arts competition?" Duan Ling Tian asked. "Of course." Yang Hui nodded as a matter of course. Martial Emperor Shi is also a well-known Martial Emperor expert on Cloud Continent. He must have received an invitation from Mist Island. For the Saint Stone, he will definitely bring people. "That's good." Upon learning that the master of the Lost Stone Forest, Martial Emperor Shichi, would be coming, Duan Ling Tian nodded in satisfaction. At the same time, the cold light deep within his eyes grew stronger, looking ready to devour someone. "What's wrong, Brother Ling Tian? Do you have a feud with that Martial Emperor Shichi?" Yang Hui noticed Duan Ling Tian's abnormality, first startled, then couldn't help but ask. "Yes." Duan Ling Tian nodded. Seeing that Duan Ling Tian didn't say anything after nodding, Yang Hui realized that he didn't want to elaborate and stopped asking questions. However, he still couldn't help but remind him. "Brother Ling Tian, that Martial Emperor Shichi broke through to the Martial Emperor Realm 4th level earlier than I did. His strength should not be underestimated." Martial Emperor Realm 4th level, Duan Ling Tian muttered to himself. Although his expression seemed unchanged, his heart couldn't help but sink. Although he remembered what happened back in the Lost Stone Forest. However, the power he displayed after he became demonized at the time as well as the strength of Martial Emperor Shichi, were extremely vague in his memory. Now, hearing Yang Hui say this, he gained a certain understanding of Martial Emperor Shichi. Yang Hui led the group to continue their journey. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian began to ponder. Back then, when Lingxian Peak held the selection for martial god disciples and followers, his cultivation had already successfully broken through to the Martial Emperor Realm's 6th level. Of course, the reason for such a rapid breakthrough was entirely due to the Nirvana pill and standing after breaking. However, his strength increase was not limited to just his cultivation. The fusion profundity and sword profundity he comprehended also received a great boost. According to his estimation, the rapid advancement of the two profundities should be attributed to the suppression of his soul by the remnant soul power of the demon sealing steel. His soul, facing the danger of soul flying away and spirit scattering, turned misfortune into a blessing, achieving an indescribable qualitative change and sublimation. Now, several months have passed since Lingxian Peak held the selection for martial god disciples and followers. Although they were constantly traveling, he did not neglect his cultivation. Moreover, throughout this journey, it was Martial Emperor Lingxian Yang Hui who led him and the other 9 people on the road, so he didn't expend any effort. As a result, his cultivation also successfully broke through to the Martial Emperor Realm 9th level. As for the two profundities he comprehended, the fusion profundity and sword profundity have both been raised to the 5th level. The sword profundity, being the latecomer, caught up with the fusion profundity. All of this was due to the sword Dao insight accumulated in Duan Lingtian's mind, and that sword Dao insight originated from the character sword in Duan Lingtian's hometown. The character sword left behind by a fellow who called himself the Sword Saint, Feng Qingyang. While Duan Lingtian was secretly assessing his current strength, a flash of inspiration suddenly struck his mind, and this name popped up. The name of the fellow who called himself the Sword Saint. The memory related to that character sword also began to flash in his mind, and he recalled it. I was wondering why my sword profundity improved so quickly, even catching up to the fusion profundity. It turns out, it was all because of that character sword. After recalling that memory, Duan Lingtian's heart suddenly cleared up. Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian closed his eyes again. He knew clearly that with his current strength, he was far inferior to Martial Emperor Shichi of the Martial Emperor Realm 4th level. If he wanted to defeat Martial Emperor Shichi, his strength still needed to be improved. Therefore, he quickly immersed himself in cultivation again, not letting go of any opportunity to cultivate. 9 dragons wore venerable art, divine dragon transformation. While cultivating, under Yang Hui's leadership, Duan Lingtian and his group were getting closer and closer to Mist Concealment Island. Mist Concealment Island, as an overseas holy island, has many martial emperor experts and demon emperor experts from the Yunxiao continent. The strength of these martial emperor experts and demon emperor experts is no less than that of the famous group of martial emperor experts and demon emperor experts on the Yunxiao continent. On Mist Concealment Island, 3 people are the strongest, the 3 island masters of Mist Concealment Island. The 3 of them control Mist Concealment Island, and they have many disciples under their command. Although there is no distinction between disciple and follower, the rank is clear. Core disciple, inner island disciple, outer island disciple. The treatment received by these 3 types of Mist Concealment Island disciples is different. This time, the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering is personally hosted by Mist Concealment Island. In addition to inviting the disciples under the command of the Martial Emperor experts and Demon Emperor experts from the Yunxiao continent, the outstanding disciples of Mist Concealment Island will also participate in the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering. At that time, experts under 70 years old from Mist Concealment Island and the Yunxiao continent will engage in a fierce competition. Currently, there are still exactly 3 months left until the start of the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering, and Mist Concealment Island has already started to become lively. The Martial Emperor experts and Demon Emperor experts who left the Yunxiao continent earliest and rushed to Mist Concealment Island have already arrived at Mist Concealment Island with their 10 most outstanding disciples. On Mist Concealment Island, they received a warm reception from Mist Concealment Island. These Martial Emperor experts, Demon Emperor experts, and their disciples were each assigned to a secluded manor. These manors are scattered across the south side of Mist Concealment Island. The south side of Mist Concealment Island is lush and green, the air is fresh, and it is filled with rich heaven and earth origin chi, making it a good place to cultivate. Anyone who cares to know about Mist Concealment Island is aware of this. The rich origin stone mines on Mist Concealment Island are hidden beneath the ground on the east side of Mist Concealment Island, and the cultivation environment on Mist Concealment Island is also affected by those origin stone mines. Because of this, the east side of Mist Concealment Island is the best place for cultivation on Mist Concealment Island. That place is the cultivation ground for the 3 great island masters of Mist Concealment Island, as well as the core disciples and inner island disciples of Mist Concealment Island. Outer island disciples, due to their low status, are not qualified to set foot there. Outer island disciples are generally distributed on the north and west sides of Mist Concealment Island. The area surrounding Mist Concealment Island is scenic and lush, with pristine ecological landscapes everywhere. Different from the surroundings of Mist Concealment Island, in the very center of Mist Concealment Island, there is a vast and boundless large city, which is also the only city on Mist Concealment Island. Wuyin City. In Wuyin City, besides some guest elders of Mist Concealment Island, there are also Martial Emperor experts from the Yunshao continent residing there. Of course, besides these people, the most numerous residents in Wuyin City are the native inhabitants of Mist Concealment Island. These native inhabitants are descendants passed down by the disciples of Mist Concealment Island since the island was established. Those descendants of theirs with good talent have all become disciples of Mist Concealment Island. Those with poor talent stayed in Wuyin City, engaging in trade and making a living. Years passed, and Wuyin City also developed impressively, becoming exceptionally lively. The south side of Mist Concealment Island is where Mist Concealment Island entertains guests. Currently, the Martial Emperor experts and Demon Emperor experts from the Yunshao continent, as well as the 10 most outstanding disciples they each brought, are all arranged to stay here once they arrive. 2 junior sisters, you've just arrived at Mist Concealment Island. I'm afraid you haven't been to Wuyin City yet, right? How about senior brother takes you to look around? South of Mist Concealment Island, inside a spacious manor, in an independent courtyard, a middle-aged man in casual clothes was staring greedily at the 2 young women in front of him. Beside him, the gaze of another middle-aged man was similar, filled with greed and fervor, staring intently at the 2 women in front of him. Deep in their eyes, there was a mix of lust and depravity. They had lived most of their lives on Mist Concealment Island, and this was the first time they had seen such beauties, and they saw 2 at once, making them feel that this trip was worthwhile. The 2 women in front of them were breathtakingly beautiful, almost stealing their souls. Both women possessed peerless beauty, capable of overthrowing kingdoms. Although both were equally outstanding, the temperaments of the 2 women were completely different. The woman wearing light purple clothes subtly exuded a seductive aura, as if she could charm all living beings, like a red rose. If the purple-clothed woman was likened to a red rose, then the other woman was a snow lotus unstained by the mud, delicate and charmingly pure. The beauty of the 2 women each had their own distinct characteristics. That's right, 2 junior sisters. With the 2 of us senior brothers accompanying you, we guarantee your trip to Wuyin City will be worthwhile. The other middle-aged man also said, not concealing the fanaticism in his eyes at all. Although these 2 middle-aged men were in casual clothes, a token made of unknown material was tied to their belts, each carved with the character inner. If there were native inhabitants of Mist Concealment Island here, they would definitely recognize at a glance that this was the personal token of an inner island disciple of Mist Concealment Island, representing their status. The strength of the inner island disciples of Mist Concealment Island is comparable to that of ordinary martial god disciples on the Yunshao continent. Thank you for the kind intentions of the 2 senior brothers. However, my sister and I just arrived and plan to rest well for a period, so we temporarily have no plans to go to Wuyin City. The purple-clothed woman said unhurriedly. She seemed polite, but deep within her autumn eyes, there was clearly a trace of disgust for the 2 middle-aged men in front of her. In that case, we will come again another day, one of the middle-aged men said. A moment later, the 2 middle-aged men turned and left. As they turned their backs, their expressions simultaneously darkened. Recently, they had come no less than 10 times, but every time, they were given the cold shoulder. This caused their patience to be almost completely exhausted. If they were ordinary women, if the soft approach didn't work, they would have long since resorted to force. However, The two women they fancied happened to be personal disciples of Martial Emperor experts from the Yunshao continent. Although their strength was inferior to theirs, they dared not use force, unless they wanted to die. The two of them were merely inner island disciples of Mist Concealment Island. Even if they were killed by a Martial Emperor expert from the Yunshao continent, the three great island masters of Mist Concealment Island would not stand up for them, unless they were core disciples of Mist Concealment Island. The status of a core disciple of Mist Concealment Island in the eyes of the three great island masters of Mist Concealment Island is equivalent to the status of a Martial Emperor's direct disciple on the Yunshao continent in the eyes of a martial god. Sister Kier, it seems we won't be able to go to Wuyin City today. Although those two fellows have left, they are likely lurking nearby. Once we leave, they will definitely follow us. The woman in purple said to the other woman beside her. It's all right, Sister Fair. We can go in a few days. The latter replied. The two women were none other than Li Fei and Kier, who had followed Martial Emperor Yuan to Mist Concealment Island. Although they were Martial Emperor's direct disciple under Martial Emperor Yuan, with their current strength, it would be difficult for them to achieve outstanding results at the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering. They came to Mist Concealment Island more for the excitement. Since arriving at Mist Concealment Island, they had planned to visit Wuyin City, but every time, two repulsive flies would buzz in their ears, severely affecting their mood. The flies in the eyes of Li Fei and Kier were precisely the two Mist Concealment Island Inner Island disciples who had just departed. Initially, it was those two Inner Island disciples who had welcomed their group and settled them in here. But who would have thought that they would later pester them every few days? As long as they prepared to go out, they would appear promptly, just like a dogskin plaster that could not be shaken off no matter what. In a few more days, Senior Sister Su should also be out of seclusion. At that time, we will call her to go with us. Li Fei's eyes flashed as she murmured. With Senior Sister Su there, I doubt they would dare to act recklessly. Kier gave a light humph, just as the two little girls each returned to their rooms to cultivate. Mist Concealment Island welcomed another group of uninvited guests. It was the group from Lingxian Peak that had just arrived at Mist Concealment Island. In other words, it was Duan Lingtian's group. Duan Lingtian's group, led by Martial Emperor Lingxian Yonghui, successfully navigated the peril-filled waters and arrived at their destination, Mist Concealment Island. Mist Concealment Island is here. At this moment, Yonghui spoke up, startling everyone, including Duan Lingtian, awake. In an instant, everyone woke up one after another. Arrived. This is Mist Concealment Island. Standing here, one can only see a corner of Mist Concealment Island. Mist Concealment Island, true to its name, is mostly obscured by mist, as if hidden within the fog. Many people sized up the island before them, discussing it fervently. Duan Lingtian stood to the side, looking the island up and down. Mist Concealment Island certainly lived up to its reputation. Not long after Duan Lingtian's group entered Mist Concealment Island, two figures came from a distance and blocked their path. May I ask which Martial Emperor expert from the Yunshao continent you are, my lord? After the two stopped Duan Lingtian's group, they looked directly at the leader, Yang Hui, and asked straightforwardly. Martial Emperor Lingxian, Yang Hui said indifferently, while simultaneously glancing at the two men's waists. Mist Concealment Island Inner Island disciples? My lord, the island master sent us to welcome you. Please follow us. Our Mist Concealment Island has already arranged a residence for you on the South Island. One of the Inner Island disciples spoke respectfully. Lead the way. Yang Hui nodded. Immediately, the two Inner Island disciples turned to lead the way, taking Duan Lingtian, Yang Hui, and the rest straight towards the southern part of Mist Concealment Island. That was where the South Island of Mist Concealment Island was located. South Island was also the place Mist Concealment Island used to receive guests. Normally, others were not allowed to intrude. In the sky above South Island, Inner Island disciples would patrol from time to time. Once an intruder was discovered by them, there was only one outcome: death. On the way, Duan Lingtian's group learned some things about Mist Concealment Island from the mouth of one of the Inner Island disciples. This included the fact that Mist Concealment Island had three powerful island masters, a group of Martial Emperor Realm and Demon Emperor Realm guest elders, as well as some permanent residents in the Martial Emperor Realm. Of course, they also heard about the many weak native residents in Wuyin City. This Mist Concealment Island is closed to the outside. Aside from some powerful Martial Emperor Realm and Demon Emperor Realm experts, Other ordinary native residents never leave Mist Concealment Island from birth to death. This place is simply like a paradise. Thinking of this, Duan Lingtian could not help but sigh in his heart. Additionally, Duan Lingtian's group also learned about the classification of Mist Concealment Island core disciples, inner island disciples, and outer island disciples from the inner island disciple. If Mist Concealment Island were compared to the cultivation grounds of a martial emperor expert on the Yunshao continent, then Mist Concealment Island's outer island disciples are equivalent to martial emperor followers. Inner island disciples are equivalent to martial emperor disciple. Core disciples are equivalent to martial emperor's direct disciple. This time's Mist Concealment Martial Gathering. It's not just people from our Yunshao continent participating. Your Mist Concealment Island people are also participating. After learning this from the Mist Concealment Island inner island disciple, Yang Hui's third personal disciple, Zhongin, third disciple, couldn't help but ask with a face full of surprise. Yes, the inner island disciple nodded. However, our Mist Concealment Island, just like you, only has 10 people participating. In such a large Mist Concealment Island, only 10 people are participating in the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering. The strength of these 10 participants must certainly be extraordinary, right? Someone else asked. Naturally, the inner island disciple nodded, his eyes clearly showing a bit more pride. In our Mist Concealment Island, there are no fewer than 20 core disciples. The 10 participating in the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering are precisely the 10 most outstanding core disciples of our Mist Concealment Island. Boom. The words of this inner island disciple were no different from a bolt from the blue to Duan Lingtian's group, shocking them so much they couldn't recover for a long time. In Mist Concealment Island, there were no fewer than 20 core disciples. One must know that the strength of a Mist Concealment Island core disciple was equivalent to a martial emperor's direct disciple on the Yunshao continent. And the 10 people selected from no fewer than 20 core disciples on Mist Concealment Island were undoubtedly the elite among core disciples. Among them, there were likely quite a few who were even martial emperor experts. For a moment, except for Duan Lingtian and Zhou Di, whose expressions remained calm, the faces of the 8 people, including the 2 martial emperor's direct disciple, Song Ting, second disciple, and Zhongin, third disciple, were somewhat unsightly. At this moment, they realized that at the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering, they would encounter a group of rivals who would be difficult to match. Before long, under the arrangement of the 2 inner island disciples, Duan Lingtian's group moved into a spacious mansion, which contained many independent small courtyards. With the 11 people each occupying a small courtyard, there was more than enough space. My lord, the Mist Concealment Martial Gathering will only begin in 3 months. During these 3 months, if you and your disciples feel bored, you can take a walk in Wuyin City. The 2 inner island disciples spoke to Yang Hui before leaving. Yang Hui nodded. In that case, we will take our leave first. After the 2 inner island disciples said their greetings, they turned and left, heading straight towards the east side of Mist Concealment Island. Their task was to receive a martial emperor expert and the people he brought. As long as the task was completed, they could return to Mist Concealment Island's East Island to report. After reporting, they would not need to receive any more martial emperor experts and their subordinates from the Yunshao continent. The remaining martial emperor experts and their subordinates who had not yet arrived would be received by other inner island disciples. In Wuyin City, there are both native residents of Mist Concealment Island and martial emperor experts who came here from the Yunshao continent to settle down. Quite interesting. Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged on the bed, murmuring in a low voice. In a few days, I'll take a walk in Wuyin City and incidentally experience the local customs of Mist Concealment Island. However, as an overseas holy island, the cultivation environment on this Mist Concealment Island is not something the Yunshao continent can compare to. I feel that beneath the ground of this Mist Concealment Island, there might even be a top-grade origin stone mine. Feeling the dense heaven and earth origin chi on Mist Concealment Island, Duan Lingtian secretly speculated. A top-grade origin stone mine. In such a mine, all the origin stones produced were, without exception, top-grade origin stones, and there were even some top-grade origin stones of extremely high quality within. On the Yunshao continent, such an origin stone mine had never appeared before. Although top-grade origin stones would also appear on the Yunshao continent, The top-grade origin stones there were all from high-grade origin stone mines, and the yield was extremely low, not even close to that of a top-grade origin stone mine. However, even if he guessed that there was a top-grade origin stone mine under Mist Concealment Island, Duan Lingtian was not interested in the slightest. To him, top-grade origin stones were merely currency used for trading and materials used for inscribing inscriptions, as long as he had enough to use. He didn't care how many there were. Since a top-grade origin stone mine might exist under Mist Concealment Island, then Mist Concealment Island is a treasure land. There must be many rare mineral deposits and medicinal herbs here. In a few days, I'll go to Wuyin City to see if I can gather the materials to refine an Emperor-grade spirit artifact bow and arrow. Once the materials are complete, and my cultivation progresses further to break through to the Martial Emperor realm, I will be able to condense Emperor-grade artifact fire and refine a bow and arrow of the Emperor-grade spirit artifact level. At that time, I can rely on the Emperor-grade spirit artifact bow and arrow to cultivate the Taiyan meteor arrow left to me by my father. In the blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian made a decision in his heart. Immediately after, he closed his eyes again and focused on his cultivate. 9 dragons wore venerable art, divine dragon transformation. While he was cultivating, he did not forget to comprehend his 2 profound truths. As his cultivation rapidly improved, the 2 profound truths were also constantly being enhanced. 10 days later, Duan Lingtian woke up. I am only half a step away from the Martial Emperor realm. Give me a little more time, and I will surely be able to break through smoothly. The moment he opened his eyes, Duan Lingtian's gaze flashed, revealing a powerful confidence. During this cultivate, he had already begun to charge at the final bottleneck to break through to the Martial Emperor realm, and he was only 1 step away from successfully completing the final breakthrough. Once he breaks through, it will be like a carp leaping over the dragon gate, and from then on, he will soar to the sky. Now, I'll head to Wuyin City. Duan Lingtian walked out of the room, left the independent courtyard, and took to the sky. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a bolt of lightning and swept straight towards the direction of Wuyin City.